Everyone stand and join me for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic of the nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. 3.0 is roll call school board members. 5 present and Dinger is absent. You let me know. So let's go directly into 4.0 communications and reports. And I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Hackbarth.
Mr. Chairman, just real quickly, give two updates on these things here. Brian, we have Brian.
Stay. All right, let's try that. Why don't I start with just my report, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman? Okay. We have our first early release day Wednesday this week, so I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of that. We'll be doing some staff development with our elementary, middle school, and new high school staff. We'll be taking on some restorative practices training. That's a continuation of what we started this summer. That'll be down in the PAC here at the senior high. Kelly Adams will be the one doing that. We also have homecoming next week, which is an exciting time for our schools. So getting ramped up for that. They actually sent out some literature on that. Bob Indahar, he's executive director of MREA, was here today to see me and just kind of wanted to stop in and say hi as one of the new soups in the area. And he wanted to remind me to give all of you some literature and just talks a little bit about what MREA does and how they serve all of us. There's a code that you can scan if you want to become a subscriber to that. And then also to remind everybody about the MRE conference on November 12th through the 14th. And we do have a board meeting on the 13th, but I know I've attended that meeting every year for the last 11 years. And I know a lot of board members have gone as well. And so I would highly recommend that if any of you are available to go on that conference, you could join me down there for that, because I'd like to attend if we can figure out something with the board meeting on the 13th. We have a number of things going on with committees and things like that. I can go right into that. Negotiations met again on the 14th. We meet with the teachers again on the 3rd of October. Bus drivers, we met on the 19th, and we'll meet with them again on the 2nd of October. We also reached out to the paraprofessional group, and we have a meeting scheduled for November for our first meeting with them as well. School readiness committee, I met with Diane Stordahl in the last week or so, and we've put together a team to meet and start talking about some strategic planning with preschool and school readiness. And our first meeting is tomorrow at 4:30, and I think we'll be meeting here. Transportation committee will meet on Friday. I want to meet with Mike and a board member, and we're going to talk through some things and just kind of see what we can do moving into our transition here, and see if we can learn some things from Mike and take some of his suggestions in. Let's see here. I also want to schedule some policy committee. I know we've been talking about doing that for a while, and I appreciate everybody's patience on that. We just had so many things going on, so we'll get that scheduled. I also want to schedule an insurance and benefits committee. Now that we have our bids in for healthcare, I want to share some of that with the committee, and so I'll be scheduling that. And then we also said that we would schedule a school safety committee to talk through some stuff that the teachers have brought up in negotiations, but so we get that going. And I think that's what I have right now. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, school resource officer. There was a little news on a little update on school resource officers in the state of Minnesota. I guess maybe you've seen the Attorney General Keith Ellingson released a revised opinion on some new legislation. And his opinion states that it does not limit the types of reasonable force that school resource officers or school staff can use. And so essentially things go back to the status quo. That's my understanding of that. And I think Governor Walz has came out and said basically that, he expects school resource officers to start getting themselves back into the school, obviously working with, the schools to do that. And so ironically, I met with Corporal Gunnarsson last week, and we were just talking about getting together and just kind of seeing how things are going. And so this is a revelation, obviously, and a big moment. So he mentioned that the chief would be out of town for a couple of weeks, but as soon as he returns, I want to get together with him and Corporal Gunnarsson and figure out where we're at and if we plan on doing anything different here as far as getting an officer in the building full time again. So we'll be bringing updates on that. And then last thing real quickly is that we had hoped to do our first wave recognition tonight, but we were unable to track down our first recipient of that before the end of the day. And so we'll plan on doing that at the next meeting in October.
Any questions for Superintendent? I have just point of clarification. So the SRO, we have not met with the city yet. So our SRO contract is still suspended. So
Correct.
Operating for the last board meeting, and we'll wait until we hear from the city, and then we'll let school district's attorney, city attorney, them do their things, and Brian and the chief do their things, but more to come. So hopefully.
Is there a meeting scheduled yet or no?
No, he's going to be out of town for, a couple of weeks. This was last week. And so as soon as he gets back, we'll get together and, and obviously have a few board members probably be part of that if we need to.
Thank you. Let's move on to 5.0, the consent agenda. Does anybody want anything pulled off the consent? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right, let's just do it that way. I'll make the motion. Josh seconds. Any more questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda is uploaded in board book signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Let's see. 6.0 is opportunities for citizens to speak on items not on the agenda. I had none. Did we have any?
None here.
All right, let's move directly into 7.0 to approve the agenda. Not much on it tonight, so I want to entertain a motion to, somebody give me a motion to approve the agenda as it's uploaded in the board book.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the agenda is uploaded in the board book signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving directly to 8.0 is district business. 8.1 is to approve the revisions of the district code of conduct. So let's get a motion and then a second, and then we can have discussion if need be.
I'll move to approve the revisions to the district code of conduct.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments?
I read it a couple weeks ago when we were doing policies, but I can't remember and I didn't have a chance to. Does it state anywhere that we can change discipline depending on like how many offenses, et cetera? So it's kind of like what I asked you before the meeting, like if it's blacked out, it's no longer a consequence. But if a person is a repeat offender, depending on whatever we do, are we still able to enact level 4, level 5 discipline measures? Is that in the code of conduct as well?
So the code of conduct is basically a guide for us when, handling, issues or violations in the schools. And so your school personnel, your principals, your assistant principals, they're going to have the discretion always to go ahead and change that based on their history, prior offenses, the degree, the severity of what happened. And so this is just, it really is just simply a guide for us to be referring.
I know, but is it in there that other consequences may arise after those have been exhausted?
Yep, I know we talked about it. I don't have it in front of me, the
Yeah,
entire thing, but I think we talked about putting in there that it notes that we have discretion to change, based on, those things I talked about. But yeah, in this situation, what happened is that one of the principals was looking for this area to figure out as a guide what to do and realized that we didn't include it the first time. And so that's why we're doing this revision now and adding this piece on tobacco, drug paraphernalia, and possession.
Okay.
Any other questions, discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the revisions to the district code of conduct signify by stating aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. 8.2 is to approve the addition of a district administrative assistant position and authorize administration to advertise for the position. So I'm going to make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so now I'll turn it over to Superintendent Hackbarth, and if you want to kind of explain to the rest of the board what this is, and then myself and Lynn can pipe in as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have had some discussions as a negotiations committee and leadership. It's one of those things where I've been kind of just taking a look and doing my own evaluation of the district office. We know that we had some changes this summer that, we followed. We know that our director of teacher and learning is no longer there. We know that right now we're going through a transition with food service. We know that Nancy has taken on human resources. And then, lastly, we have, retirement of a long lasting director of transportation. And so, kind of what I've seen is that with Mike coming in, I think Mike came in with a lot of experience and still I think that it's maybe too much, and that's my evaluation. It's really been too much because I can tell you that with confidence because I've seen my entire staff in the district office, chipping in and helping out and just trying to keep, us moving forward. That's really nice to see that. It's really great to see everybody doing that, but I know that comes as a cost. I know that my staff aren't getting their other jobs done.
Sorry, are you talking about with transportation? Is
Correct.
that where everyone's helping at?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And transportation coming into the year was going to be a challenge. We knew that. I think that most school districts are experiencing similar challenges right now with transportation. And it's a daily challenge. And so, my evaluation and my recommendation is that we bring in, an administrative assistant in that district office to help with transportation primarily. But I also think that there's some work that could be done with food service. And possibly a few other areas in the district office. I think it'll really help settle things down. The thing is that when you're asking your director to go out and drive school bus because you're already short on drivers, that puts us in a bind as far as like dispatch in the morning and afternoons, just getting back to parents, communicating with bus drivers. There's just a million things happening. And I think having somebody in our district office to help with some of that communication and support, I think will help bring this thing to some consistency again. We still need to, kind of wait this whole thing out with drivers. We have a few people that are in the pipeline, but it takes time. It takes time to study and get ready for the test. And then you got to pass the test. And there's just a number of hoops to jump through. And so I really think it's the best thing for the district right now to bring in some support. I would not want to bring in another person right now, whoever that might be, without having some additional support for transportation. And I really believe that food service could also benefit from having that person in here.
So to add on to that, we've had the conversations, challenge the superintendent to see if we could combine this position with any of the other positions and looked at workload, what have you. I think this is the best avenue to go. He's talking a lot about transportation. That's where we're going to utilize it, but it's going to be utilized in other areas as well. We've approved the business manager contract. Want to give Brian the ability to operate as he sees fit. And I feel as the chair, we need to move forward in this direction. Some may say, why are you bringing on another staff member? But I think it's vital that there was a miss someplace along the line over those last several years, and this can fill that gap. And I think it may, as we look at retention, as retirements come about in the future, maybe we don't fill another one of those positions, but at least this starts to get the ball rolling. So I just want the board to know that in my conversations with Brian, certainly from the chair's position, is supportive of this. So hopefully we can find the right candidate and move forward. That being said, any other questions?
I do have a couple. So do you have candidates in mind right now, or is this something that might play out for another month where we don't have anybody?
Yeah, we do.
We don't have to go into who it is or anything, but
Yeah.
just want to know if there's candidates out,
we have to post. We have to
Okay.
post for the position.
Yep.
I mean, but certainly, we know that there's certain people that have certain skill sets, but we'll post and we'll see what happens.
Okay. Do you have any more, Josh?
You can go.
Okay. How much is it gonna cost, generally speaking?
So, I guess I didn't look before the meeting, but a first year admin assistant, anybody have any idea what that is?
Well, while she looks that up, would it be a permanent thing? Because you said until maybe like we get the bus situation figured out. So once the bus situation's figured out, is that position gonna be null and void, or is that person going to float to a different position?
It'd be permanent position, and the idea would be, and Mr. Chairman, I think kind of mentioned, if there's a situation where we would have some attrition, we could possibly look to not fill there. and maybe that person, we could restructure kind of what that looks like. But for right now, I just think we need the support. And I think and again, I apologize for not looking at the number. I know it's,
Well, it'll be per the contract.
yeah,
Or
Yeah,
it's-
well,
they're
like-
right, because we don't know who we're gonna get.
negotiating wages.
30,000, 60,000,
And I don't, without having, I mean,
Yeah.
that's if you can find it, you can.
just general in the area. I don't know.
Yeah,
Is that?
Thank you.
Position gonna be in the district office?
it would be,
You have space there.
but
for that
we're
position?
gonna have to figure it out.
Is a bus driver license required for that position?
For the admin assistant?
Yeah,
I don't think so. I don't know that we could. We certainly could encourage that to happen, but
Run into the same problem as we're in.
right,
You have that person busing
right.
instead of.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where-
No, I agree. I saw the stress level on the transportation director over the last few years, so I don't disagree at all. And I think that having someone there to help would hopefully make it easier for someone especially someone that's new coming in, not realizing the challenges that job can bring.
yeah, it's very challenging and, it just seems like it's ever changing. Like every day is, a different challenge. And then, a lot of people, I understand, and I think, a lot of people do understand, but maybe people don't know that that person's also, trying to figure out, activities, and making sure that's all set up for the week. And we try to be even 2 weeks ahead looking at that stuff, but, it's just never ending. And it's quite a puzzle, and with all the pieces, it's difficult. I really think bringing in somebody will provide some stability and quite frankly, some relief to the rest of my office staff to get back to doing what they're supposed to do. And I know I take a lot of pride in that, and I don't want to let them down.
I think, one additional comment that needs to be had is, at the negotiations, with the bus drivers, had nothing to do with negotiations, but they were so kind to provide comments on what is needed or what they felt is needed. And they were all in consensus that, there needs to be some more support. So I think not only this, it's not just administrative assistant for transportation. We'll be focused on transportation, but with a new business manager coming on board and as we, change structure, I shouldn't say we, but as a superintendent, maybe change the structure within the administrative office. This will just fall directly into it. So, any other questions? on
I
it?
have one more.
Yep.
So I know we've discussed a lot about saving money and cutting costs and things like that. This would add costs. So are we going to cut or get rid of something in order to save money, or are we just gonna add to the deficit? spending?
So the discussions that we've had with board, with chair, vice chair and the superintendent and the treasurer, it'll add to the budget. It's not an item that was budgeted. Long term, we need to look at some things, but we've already identified, and I'm gonna talk about it in board member comments. We've identified some areas where we can have some cost saving measures, and I can just utilize one of those right now. We'll talk a little bit about utilizing charter buses and things of that nature. So we've been focusing to look at the overall budget, look at the deficit.
Are charter buses cheaper than us using district buses?
No. But anyway, but those conversations are being had. So we realize that this is bringing on this. Let's just use $10. This is bringing on an
Yeah.
additional couple dollars to that $10. But as we bring this on, those discussions are being had as a new transportation director comes on, a new business manager comes on. That direction's been given. Hey, we have to figure out something. So we won't figure out here at the board table. But the superintendent administration knows the direction of, hey, we gotta do something here. So.
Okay.
And again, I'm gonna touch on Ellers and, what we're gonna do moving forward with finance committee and board member comments. So I think that'll help answer more of your questions. All right, but hearing no other questions or discussions, all those in favor of approving the addition of a district administrative assistant position signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Okay, motion carries. So we're already to board member comments. So, Josh, I'll start with you.
I have a couple. First of all, I'd just like to, the transportation, everyone knows it's a mess right now. And I just like that, we're just keep pushing forward and hey, maybe it didn't work last week or it didn't work last month, but we're trying something else. We're not sitting and just being like, hey, it's going to work and we're going to stay patient. We're trying to do something else to try to get transportation where we want it to be. And I think that that's big. The other thing that I guess I would like to know, and is probably more towards Chad, just the Orton Gillingham, thing, the training and stuff that we had this summer. Is everyone on board over there? And and how is it going, I guess?
It's a lot of work, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It's just taking some time. You're going. The gal that did our training for us that week, we need to go slow and go fast, and we're just building the capacity. Teachers are working on jotting those lessons on a daily basis, and
It's something new, so I know that, you have your teachers that are not gonna wanna pursue something that's new, but obviously it,
after that training. They were
good.
a lot of good information.
Perfect.
Lindsay?
No, I guess I'm excited to see some of the changes that we're making with the transportation. I know everybody's been working really hard and having patience and dealing with a lot of changes and unknowns. So I'm glad that we are trying to find some solutions and making some moves that way. And yeah, I think we're kind of past the first part of school and it's settling into routines, and at least we are in my house. So hopefully everyone else is. But yeah, no, that's all. A lot of meetings coming up, so we'll see what happens.
Amanda?
I have none tonight.
Lynn?
I don't have any either.
Okay, so my comments, I want to talk about a couple things. Let's, as a group, real quick, talk about that board meeting for November 13th, I think. Brian, is that the second board meeting?
That would be the first.
Let's, we have other board meetings prior to that, but I think it's always been a expectation, the superintendent to be there. Our previous superintendent, we sent the MREA convention all the time. I think we even still have a staff member that may even be on the board. I'm not sure.
Oh.
One of our teachers, and then encourage everybody from the board to go to it if need be. So I think I want to plan on not having that meeting. But we'll talk more as it comes. We don't need to make that decision tonight. Secondly, Amanda, you did ask about the budget concerns. We talked about budget deficits where we're operating, some of our ARPA funds. We will be having a finance committee meeting, way it's structured. We haven't had a finance committee for several years, but it's a board meeting. But it's just going to be focused on finance. I've had the superintendent, he's communicated to everybody that he's reached out to Ellers. Ellers is going to come in and present some different solutions that we can look at operating in the future.
Do they come in for free, or how much does that cost?
Well, in this case, they'll come in for free because they're going to help us. I mean, if we entertain or hire them to do something, then.
So they're pretty much bidding us.
But Ellers is kind of, how would you put it? They're our only option, that we want to go with financial aspect of things. So they're gonna share some different things that, how we can be creative, with our operating budget, how we can be creative, with different funds. So we'll set that up in the near future, but the discussions are ongoing between board leadership. When I talk about board leadership, it's the board chair and the board vice chair with the superintendent to look at the budget. I mean, this is a budget that wasn't, Brian didn't make the budget. The administration administration that's here, his administration was involved in making the budget, is very comfortable with the budget. We have a new administrator at the helm now, so Brian needs to take some time to be able to look at that to see where we can make adjustments. We know over the past several years, since 2020, we've added on things for support that was needed, and so we have to think strategically what that means for the district. So. Any other questions when it comes to budget? I mean, I will tell you that we're heavily engaged in having conversations regarding.
Do we have a general idea of when the meeting is gonna be?
That's what I don't know. Brian just sent it out last week. I was out of town last week. I think
Yep.
I'll let Brian go ahead and address.
They were gonna be in town, this week. No, it was last week. It was last week because you were out of town. And so, and it was last minute that they offered to visit with us. And so we just set something in October. You know, and so that's what we're looking at is October.
It's October, okay.
And
We'll
we'll,
try to do like a pre-meeting,
Yep.
with the board chair, vice chair and the treasurer, just to sit down with them and then set something up to where they actually come and present to
Mhm.
the whole finance committee.
Okay.
And that's all we're gonna talk. It'll end up being a special meeting
Mhm.
of the finance committee or just a finance committee meeting. We'll call it, but that's all that it's gonna be focused.
Okay.
is- there's like,
Mhm. One quick question. Do you know if like they're gonna break it down to specifically what things are gonna be spent on, or is there just gonna be a general broad idea?
Well, I think it's more of options of what we have, what we can do.
Okay.
In the future. You know, we talked about, we approved the levy, last meeting, but there's other options that are out there.
Okay.
You know, it'll go as far as, suggesting different types of referendums that are available and things. So it's more of an informational, gathering. And then we're gonna have to decide as a board how we want to move forward. So is that going back to where you pose the question, you say, okay, we're operating within a deficit. Do we need to make cuts, or we're operating within a deficit? What's the
Mhm.
solutions?
Next step.
They have other,
They
other
have-
solutions
okay.
rather than making cuts.
One other question. Why hasn't there been a finance committee meeting in years?
Well, we haven't been operating in a deficit. So
Yeah.
typically, I mean, that holds within the treasurer and the board leadership to stay
Okay.
within the realms of that.
Mhm.
Now we're seeing things that are, all these different regulations that are being put on the district. A lot of unknowns. There's things that we're getting paid for from the state this year that we don't know that if we're gonna get paid for that next year. So that's why we want to get together and talk about some of those unknowns. How we're gonna operate the district moving forward.
Okay.
And we're operating flush. I want people to know that, and if the media is watching, we're not in dire straits.
Mhm.
You know, people operate in a deficit. We have,
Yeah.
we have additional support staff and individuals that we brought on,
Mhm.
which are getting us to that. Some of the other things we talked about, different busing avenues, Flash talked, but we have to be strategic. If we don't have a bus, we got to figure out how we're going to get our kids to where they need to be without canceling something. And the first priority comes with busing the kids back and forth to school. But we also have, you know, we're making kids good young characters by involving in athletics or the other activities that they're involved with. And if we can't get them there, we got to do what we can do to get them there. So that's where some of the different costs over the past year or two have come from. I will tell you that the group, chair, vice chair, and treasurer sat down with Amanda as well and went over numbers
Mhm.
real quickly. So more to come, and Amanda may even be involved in that meeting, as well as Carla.
Yeah.
And it'll just be, essentially, it's a work session. It's talking, asking those same questions that you're asking, Amanda, and trying to figure out how we're gonna move forward.
I've thought of a comment now that you said this. Okay, two quick questions for you, Brian. How are the free lunches going? Have we had enough to know how much we're losing yet?
losing?
Yeah. Like,
I don't think we're losing anything.
no,
I don't think so. I think that our free and reduced applications are higher than we expected.
Good.
So I think our community just responded
Mhm.
just great, you know, to the challenge.
Mhm.
And so we've been doing very well there. And so early indications are that we're doing great.
Okay, cause I
Yep.
know that it was discussed that we might be getting less than what actual lunches cost.
No, I mean,
I
I'm,
was just wondering if. Okay, so that's what I was wondering. If that is- As what was, okay. And then, you mentioned busing. Did we ever do contracts with like the private schools? Or negotiations that was talked about? Because we can now do that for our buses?
so that's an option. It's an option, but I think that starts next year.
Oh, that starts next year,
Yep.
okay.
And so currently we have we're obligated to provide transportation because we're the
But now we
LEA.
negotiate, yeah, so I
Yep.
wasn't sure if that started this year or what.
Next year.
Next year.
Next year, we could have that conversation.
We can have, preliminary conversations. Transportation committee can certainly start talking about
True.
things of that nature and how we'll move forward. My only other last comment is, go to the website. We talk about bus drivers. We need bus drivers. If you're willing and able, check it out. Talk to some of our seasoned bus drivers, ask them how they feel about the position, but if you're willing and able and wanna drive a bus, by all means, check the website out, call the district office, whatever you may need, and I'm gonna speak for the other administrators, we're always looking for paras, so.
I know one board member has mentioned that we ought to think about maybe doing a job fair. And so I'm interested in doing that, and I think, not just for bus drivers, but for paras and other staff, and I think it's good to get out there and at the very minimum, sell our school and talk about our school, all the great things that are going on. And so even if we don't get something filled right away, I mean, maybe down the road, somebody will consider coming in and work for us as a para or bus driver or teacher or something or another, so sub. So there's a lot of opportunities there. So that's one thing that we talked about doing. And I wanted to mention too, I plan on meeting with bus drivers, all the bus drivers tomorrow at 1:30. I just want to I want to say some things, from the heart and obviously just extend my appreciation for everything that they've done with a short of cards in the deck, so to speak. And so they've done an amazing job. And so I just want to talk to them a little bit and also reach out about coming together as a team to figure out solutions to some of these issues and challenges to make sure that we can get our heads above water for good. Stay there.
That's all I have for comments. So with that, 10.0's next board meeting is scheduled for October 9th, 2023 at 5:30. So we're gonna, unless I hear otherwise, if individuals need to change it, if you can try to get to me like at least a week in advance, so we can try to coordinate that, because usually we're rolling by the Monday prior to the meeting. We're already planning for the meeting the next week. So the sooner or later, then certainly things come up. But right now it's on the calendar. Was approved last January for October 9th at 5:30. So we'll have it at that time unless you hear otherwise. So 11.0 is I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, anybody want to talk about it? All those in favor of adjourning signify by stating aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned.